And it's time for Lefties Losing It. Start with veteran Democrat strategist James Carville. He's often presented as the sensible old guard before they all went crazy and woke. But the elder statesman of the party is just as deranged as the current crop. Listen to him rant here about wanting to watch President Trump suffer.
I want to be clear on this. I do not want that man to die. I want to watch him suffer. And I can't watch a dead person suffer. So I want him to be fully cognizant come November. So when people tell him.
I can't watch a dead person suffer. I mean, these people are sick. I keep telling you that. Sick and often violent. Watch this leftist activist, Chris Ostroshoko, assault conservative female journalist Savannah Hernandez. Sick, sick stuff.
Guys, it's over! It's over! Back the it's over! It's documented, so get charged! It's over! Buddy, come on. Dude, we love you! We love you!
Was that a white man taking a stand against racism by assaulting a brown woman? Is that what happened there? This is a woman with Filipino and Mexican heritage. He should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law for that. Did you see how he had to be held back by others? He wanted to continue that assault. And this character has been celebrated by the leftist media in the past. Here he is, featured with Jen Psaki. Remember her, Joe Biden's former White House press secretary turned MSNBC host.
He's using his newfound fame to encourage others to stand up for community too. Ahead of nationwide strikes and protests tomorrow, we asked Chris if he had any words of wisdom to share, and here's what he had to say.
We need some peace and harmony in our state and across our country. We've been dealing with enough tyranny. We're done with that. We need some peace, love, and harmony. Please come out. Please show up. Get off that couch. If I can do it, you can do it.
Oh, yes, he's all about peace, love and harmony. You saw that. Now, get ready to be captivated by a stunning and brave display from a bunch of silly young women who performed a protest dance aimed at President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. That would be the President Trump who first alerted authorities to Epstein's creepy antics and who Epstein hated and tried to destroy to his dying day. But why let facts get in the way of interpretive dance?
I have a tale to tell.
So brave, so stunning. Now, do you remember the sitcom Malcolm in the Middle? It was pretty good. All about a genius child, Malcolm, and his dysfunctional family. Remember, he had a big bunch of brothers. Well, now in the new series, they're rebooting it. He has one less brother because one of those brothers is now trans or non-binary, and apparently he knew from the age of 5 he was a they-them.
I was like 5 when I started feeling wrong. Thought I was great at hiding it because you guys never said anything. He was looking at me and I knew that he knew and had always known.
Let's go back to MSNBC now, or MS Now, whatever they're calling themselves. And this time we're checking in with Rachel Maddow, doing what she does best, misleading her dim-witted audience. Here she pretends she cares about veterans and reads extensively from an NPR piece about veterans losing their homes.
How are these guys doing taking care of the troops and the veterans who come home from war? This is the lead from NPR. Quote, more than 10,000 veterans lost their homes to foreclosure since May of last year when the Trump administration shut down a key safety net in the VA home loan program. Quote, the Trump administration was warned this would happen. At a hearing in March 2025 before the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, a representative from the Mortgage Bankers Association warned about it explicitly.
Oh, she went on to read more extracts from the piece, but curiously, she forgot this key part of the story. The roots of the crisis go back to a mistake made during the Biden administration when the VA abruptly shut down a pandemic assistance program while thousands of vets were still in the middle of it. I'm sure that was just an innocent oversight from Rachel. Must be. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, the MS Now host makes CNN look balanced and rational.
Yes, Rachel is going to Rachel, and that's what she does. There's nothing innocent about her.
She's a verb now.
Yes, and she knows exactly what she's doing, and she is quite smart. So, you know, the way you described her leading her dim-witted audience, there's sort of a Pied Piper aspect to what she's doing. Nobody from the right watches MSNBC or MS Now, so that's not a problem. But in this day and age of social media, it does get clipped and shared large and wide. And I think what she's really doing there is taking advantage of the wedge and the fracture in the Trump base right now as it relates to the war and this idea that he's focusing too much on foreign affairs and not enough on domestic affairs like the veterans. And then she's insinuating like, oh, look, he's sending people to war. And then when the veterans come back, they're not looked after. That's the undertone of what she's doing. So I think there's a specific point she's trying to drive and to extend that wedge. And she has no problem very selectively taking only a piece of it out of context to serve her means.
Well, she can do that because really that's a minor issue compared to what she did for years, which was just relentlessly push discredited, debunked Russian collusion hoax hysteria, and really absolutely no accountability for any of that.
No, in fact, she got rewarded. She famously now works 1 day a week for 1 hour of programming, and she gets paid $30 million. So it's great to be Rachel Maddow.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about President Trump's Iran blockade and the Strait of Hormuz. Kosha, explain how this blockade works and why the US is cutting off a trade route that it's been desperately trying to force open.
And the messaging has been a little bit all over the place from the administration, which doesn't help. So CENTCOM came out and clarified, given the little bit scattered messaging, that they are blocking just Iranian ports and on the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf side of the strait specifically. Other ships and vessels are allowed to transit through the strait. They can use other ports, but just not those two. And the reason is that's where the oil is exported. So they're trying to now maximize economic pressure on Iran. That is, or it usually was, Trump's favored lever to apply pressure, using economic tools. And so the idea here is that if they stranglehold or choke off the export revenue that Iran gets, that's directly pressuring Iran. It's indirectly pressuring Iran through China because China's their biggest customer, and China theoretically would pressure Iran to come to the table or come to some sort of deal. That's the strategy.
But there's a fear that cutting off oil supply to China could go the other way. Instead of them putting pressure on the Iranian regime to be reasonable and come to a deal, that they'll start helping the Iranian regime and providing them perhaps even with military aid, which would be a major escalation in the war. There's been some conjecture about that. Some may call it scaremongering. What do you think about that? Is there any possibility that China will take a bigger role in this conflict?
Very possible. And there's a saying that once you get into a conflict, the only thing that's predictable is the unpredictability of it. And we don't know what could happen. There are many, many actors on the board. And certainly if you're cutting off 80% of where China acquires its oil from, they seem to be so far restrained, and they also like to favor economic leverage and other strategies. But I wouldn't rule that out at some point, some sort of pressure tactic coming back. Also, the Gulf states do use those ports, and they are allies. They've invested trillions of dollars in the U.S. They're not exactly happy with this as well. Iran itself is going to keep trying to think of its own cards and counter moves that it can play, which has been attacking the Gulf states nearby to further kind of widen that wedge between the U.S. and them, because we're supposed to be allies. So all sorts of things could happen. And while this plays out, the prices are surging. We're back up to over $100 a barrel.
Share market is all over the place.
All over the place. So this is a high-stakes issue that's affecting the whole world in many ways.
And I think its entire conflict has shown that the West is not terribly resilient. Not only have we become overly reliant on foreign nations for essential needs, but we can't withstand even just a few weeks of discomfort, whether that's shortages, prices, stock market turmoil. It's a very different mindset to, say, World War II, where people's entire, people in Australia were willing to completely turn their lives upside down to go join a conflict on the other side of the world because it was for the greater good.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a different era where countries and economies are much more fragile. I always say it's like the age of fragility in a way, that you're so reliant on this global system working, and ultimately those alliances and coalitions can fray when something happens, and then you don't have self-reliance. Also, demographics have changed. The nature of the country is different. The willingness to go and fight for a cause is different. Maybe loyalty to the cause is different now. The understanding of it is different. So yeah, it has definitely exposed fragility and lack of unity, I think, and lack of consensus on what we should be doing or should not be doing, for that matter.
Well, you look at the what's happening in Europe and how divided they are on key issues, then you just see we are not united in the West at the moment. Now, this may be one of the dumber controversies to hit the Trump administration after Pope Leo again ignored the persecution of Christians to instead criticise the Trump administration. You may recall he previously criticised the administration for implementing immigration policy. This time it was the war in Iran, and we all knew it was only a matter of time before Donald Trump hit back. No surprises there. But there wasn't much fuss there because we've become accustomed to that. But then he posted this image. It's a meme, and all hell broke loose. People on the right and left were upset. The lefties are always upset, but some Christians on the right said this was tantamount to blasphemy and kosher. This is rare for the president. He deleted it in the end.
To me, that's the global headline. Trump actually walked something back and deleted his tweet. Look, I think the first tweet, yes, it ruffled feathers and it was maybe uncouth and all of that. But at this point, that is Trump's brand. And you could argue that the Pope kind of was asking for it by stepping into the political arena. You're the head of, obviously, a religion, and stay in the lane of religion and morality. Don't step into politics, because if you do, we have an eccentric president who will punch back, even if you're the Pope. But the second one, I think people viewed it as a little self-aggrandizing, putting him in there.
To me, it was a joke. To me, it was it's a meme. It's a meme. He's not presenting himself as God or Jesus or
of course
the supreme leader, if you want to use Iranian terminology. But it is interesting that he deleted it.
He did. And I think the other issue, too, is it's undergirded by the fact that this Iran war remains very controversial in his
On
base.
the right as well.
On the right as well. And I think that's where it hit a nerve and maybe led to that decision, whereas when he sparred with the Pope and even the previous Pope Francis on immigration, he doubled and tripled down because he knew that his base was with him and the majority of the country is with him. Here, it's a little bit dicier.
Absolutely. And you're right, because when he first had a go at the Pope, or go back at the Pope, the media were shocked, all the usual commentators were shocked, but the voters weren't. They were expecting him to say something back after Pope Leo intervened in domestic US politics. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance has weighed in on this issue. He's obviously a devout Catholic. He's pointed out that the US president is in charge of US foreign policy, and perhaps the Pope should focus on matters concerning the Catholic Church.
In some cases, it would be best for the Vatican to stick to matters of morality, to stick to matters of what's going on in the Catholic Church, and let the President of the United States stick to dictating American public policy.
Kosha, how do you see J.D. Vance's role in this entire conflict? He's been charged with negotiating this peace deal, but as we know, he is not an interventionist. In fact, is probably the most isolationist in this administration.
He's in a difficult spot. He's walking a tightrope where he is a standard bearer for populism, America first, nationalism, as you say, anti-war. He is a devout Catholic, just to bring the Pope brouhaha back into it. And he can't go out and shouldn't go out, in my opinion, and openly disparage his boss. Like, that's never a good strategy for any subordinate. We've all been in that position. But by the same token, he is independently elected because the president and vice president are elected together. So he's not somebody who could be fired or put to the side in the same way as other cabinet members. And so he has a little bit more runway to figure out how to somehow signal his allegiance to the constituency and that he still is America first if he should be the front runner in 2028, which right now he is, without going against the president. And that's a really, really tough tightrope to walk, but he's doing it as well as I think he can.
And I saw some odds just in the last 24 hours. He's still, the odds I saw, the hot favourite to be the next candidate. But Marco Rubio's stocks are rising, and there is a difference between the two characters in their worldview, not just obviously how they operate. Now, let's talk about a couple of congressmen who have disgraced themselves. We already talked about Eric Swalwell extensively last night. The Democrat congressman resigned from Congress today. Last night, he suspended his campaign to be the next governor of California after shocking allegations were made against him, including rape. But the Republicans have their own scandal today. Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez has quit his re-election bid after being accused of sending lurid text messages to at least 2 staff members, including one with whom the married father of 6 admitted to having an affair with and who fatally set herself on fire. Tony Gonzalez posted this: "When Congress returns tomorrow, I will file my retirement from office." Kosher, these 2 congressmen have disgraced themselves, their parties, their constituents. It's incredible that you could get to that level with these sorts of skeletons in your closet.
And the timing is curious because the cynical side of me would think that it was all orchestrated because a lot of this stuff is known. There are open secrets in Washington. Why now? Why did they take out Swalwell by they, whoever that is? And then very conveniently, they find a Republican to take out to sort of diffuse against him. But the broader issue here is these people in politics and in Congress are not exactly the most sympathetic figures. It's easy to perceive or imagine that these kinds of things happen more often than not. And then on top of that, there's this cloak around it, and there's no transparency at all. There's actually a whole file of sexual harassment settlements that they make to staffers or other people who've accused them, and that is under seal. And Nancy Mace and others have been trying to pass legislation to get it unsealed. The counter-argument is, presumption of innocence, and sometimes these people have targets on their back, and there can be frivolous accusers, so let's not put it out there. But the flip side to that is, these are public servants. They're meant to be representing us, and everything from their stock trades to settlements that they make to accusers of sexual harassment should be made public, and it isn't. And then when it's opportune for them, they'll pick and choose and reveal or do these Opera research dumps on people, which is very curious, but, I'm kind of not surprising.
Well, you said these are often open secrets, and with Eric Swalwell, it appears to be, because so many people are now coming out and saying he's always had this shocking reputation and people have known, but it wasn't reported. This was very well hidden from the public. And he's had this Teflon quality because he had the entire Fang Fang scandal where he had a Chinese spy in his inner sanctum, in his bed, and he got a promotion after that. He wasn't demoted. He didn't have his career destroyed. It was just forgotten about, and he was elevated in the Democrat Party.
He was a presidential candidate. He never got more than 1% of the vote, but he was running. He was, the face of the Democrat Party for that period of time. He was probably useful to them. I would assume he was one of the faces of the Russiagate collusion hoax against Trump.
He was an attack dog.
He was an attack dog, and so he was protected, and maybe now he has outlived his usefulness, and how the mighty have fallen.
The party machinery gets you in the end. Kosher Gator, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.